Set your camera rigged. Camera's all set to go. Throttle controlled auto. Roger, let's go now. Sounds good. Ready? Getting close. Good. Sure feel like we're going the wrong way.
Traffic tickets! What do we do about traffic tickets? When I say traffic tickets, what I really mean are speeding tickets. Speeding tickets are the bane of our existence a lot of times, especially on motorcycles. But most of us just pay our tickets because we don't know any better. We don't know otherwise. We may at one point feel a ticket was unfair and we pay it because, well, that's just what we're trained to do. What a lot of us do is we simply hope that we don't get a ticket, or we try to find means to avoiding them, which is perfectly reasonable. You can't avoid tickets by slowing down. You can also employ radar. And I'm going to talk about some of this stuff now. I have to give a disclaimer here in the beginning. I am not a lawyer. I'm an artist by profession. And this is not legal advice. Hope you don't hear too much extra mic noise. My lips being too close. This is just practical advice that I've learned throughout the years. And that's all it is. It's not legal advice in any sense. And it shouldn't be taken as such. With that said, press on. So, traffic tickets. What to do about traffic tickets? Well, you can pay them or you can fight them. Of course, fighting it, you can either get a traffic ticket lawyer, generally known as a traffic lawyer, or you can fight it yourself. Now, I'm from California. This is generally going to apply to mostly California, secondarily the rest of the US, and thirdly, there might be some general tips that work elsewhere in the world. Okay, so what do you do if you want to fight a ticket? You don't want to just take it. You've already paid into the system too much. A couple ways you can do that in California. You can do what's called a trial by written declaration, also known as a TBD. Or you can just show up to court on your assigned court date and you can give your best argument. Now, the best way to do it, in my non-lawyer advice, is to do a TBD, which is trial by written declaration, and basically you state the facts of your case, and there's ways to get the forms online. It's pretty easy. And then you want to plead not guilty and all that good stuff. These are just general guidelines. And then you want to state your reasons why you're not guilty. Now, obviously, some tickets are harder to fight than others, but I'll go into the reasoning you can use a little bit later. If you show up in court, you can do that too. But the reason the TBD is better, because if you lose the TBD, which is probably going to happen, depending on your case, you get what's called a trial de novo if you file within 20 days of receiving your guilty verdict by mail. And then you have two trials with two different judges. So that's the huge advantage there. Keep in mind that there's one other option, is you can ask for traffic school. Judges can give out traffic school as much as they want. And a common misconception is that they can't do that. So in California, you get to use your traffic school once every 18 months. So basically it's like a get out of ticket free pass. It's kind of interesting that they do that. One, because tickets are infractions. They're not misdemeanors or felonies. And two, because, well, they don't want people to start fighting their tickets en masse if the wrong person or the wrong people keep getting, like maybe they happen to get a ticket a couple times in a week, let's say. That traffic school sort of keeps people sated. But you can always ask for traffic school. So that's another route. The other thing to know about fighting a ticket by mail, TBD, is you have to pay your full bail amount, that's the price of the ticket, up front. And if you win, you get that money back as a check in the mail. So, there's that. One thing about fighting tickets, whether you actually win or not, is learning the process is paramount in, one, utilizing your rights as a civilian to do so as a citizen. And 2, you might win. If you win, you get your money back, and you have a moral victory, and you're less afraid of the cops, and it's less random. You don't have to worry about not getting the ticket. You can actually do something effective if you actually do get the ticket. Okay, so 2 types of tickets. What do we have? We have the 2 most common types of tickets in California and the States and everywhere else. But I'm going to be citing California state law. There's a basic speed law ticket. Now the basic speed law states roughly that no person shall go faster than is reasonable and prudent for conditions. If you will notice in that language, there's a lot of interpretation there. So that's important to know. The cop who pulls you over is merely a witness. They're not a prosecutor. They're not the judge and jury. They're simply a witness. That witness has determined that you're going too fast for conditions with a basic speed law ticket, also known as CBC 22350. Keep that in mind, 22350. It may be the case that you weren't speeding. It may also be the case that you were going too fast for the conditions. Like, so let's say the speed limit is 50, and you're going 50, but it's snowing out. That may be too fast for those conditions. So keep that in mind. Now, the speed limit signs that you see on surface streets, and basic speed law only applies to surface streets, not the freeway. Those speed limit signs you see that's the prima facie limit. And prima facie is fancy Latin for on its face. So on the face of the speed limit sign, you see a number, maybe 40, 45, 50. And that number is not just a guess or voted by citizens. That number is established. It's engineering and traffic survey, I should say, and that's conducted by a city employee who you pay with your traffic tickets. Think about that. And the person who gives you a ticket, the cop, also works for the city, and the judge as well. So, everyone that collects this revenue from you, or is indirectly responsible for setting the speed limits, is benefiting from the revenue collected by tickets. Okay, so the speed limit sign is determined by an engineering and traffic survey. Now, sometimes civilians get involved. They want a slower speed limit. They don't understand speed, traffic laws and engineering and road engineering and all that good stuff. And they may pressure engineers to lower the speed limit artificially. And of course, cops benefit because they can hand out more tickets. A couple things to note is speed limits which are too low for a given road will actually cause more accidents. And the way we know this is because the guidelines that all states use is the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices. And this manual, heretofore known as the MUTCD, basically states such that a lower speed limit, what it'll do is create a condition where some people take the limit seriously, some people will ignore it, and then you have people going slow in the fast lanes, and it creates more lane changes, and more lane changes will always mean more accidents generally. Does this sound familiar? That's the freeway. The freeway it has this problem because it has an artificially low limit, and people take the limit seriously, some do, and then they do these incredibly slow speeds in any lane they feel like it, generally the fast lane. So that's that. So anyway, back to surface streets. With surface streets, if you get a basic speed law ticket, those are pretty easy to fight because it's just interpreted. The cop says you were going faster than is reasonable, prudent for conditions, and you, the civilian, are saying, "Niet." Now, you can prove this in a variety of ways. You can make a lot of cases here, but let me just fill you in on this amazing secret. The real speed limit, there's the posted speed limit on surface streets, and there's the real speed limit. You know what it is? My new tires grip these grooves so well that it makes my tires feel weird. Anyway, the real speed limit on surface streets is generally 55 miles an hour or 65 miles an hour depending on the type of road and whether it's divided and all that stuff. Now there are exceptions for business and school districts and all that good stuff. In those areas, speed limits are actually quite low, and you should heed those. And of course, you want to heed pedestrian rights and all that good stuff. But if you're on a really nice surface street that's a divided road and it's over 40 feet wide, the real speed limit is generally going to be 65 miles an hour, not whatever the speed limit says. The speed limit is simply the prima facie limit, also known as the presumption of safe speed. But the speed limit sign is dumb. It doesn't know what the conditions are, it doesn't know if there's pedestrians around, it doesn't know what time of day it is, etc. So that's why there's interpretation, and that's why it's so easy to beat a 22,350 basic speed law ticket. Now the other kind of ticket you can get is in California, it's a 22,349. In other states, it would just be an exceeding max speed law ticket, and the wording might be different per state. Now this is harder to fight because what you're doing is exceeding the max speed for a given road. On the freeway, that max speed is 65 miles per hour, determined and set as the national limit. And on the surface street, 65 miles an hour is also the max speed on any given road, on any given divided road. So if you're going, let's say the speed limit sign says 45 and you're going 55, and it's a divided road over 40 feet wide, you're still under the max speed limit and you can fight that ticket pretty easily. So keep that in mind. You want to be under the max speed if you want a better chance of fighting tickets. I guess I'll split. I don't like to talk and split though, because the way I concentrate, the way the part of my brain that's talking does not like the lane split. But this road's pretty wide. I'll probably just settle in right here. One thing about splitting is when you start splitting, people expect it, and then they make way for you, and then you get to keep going. You don't have to, but they kind of expect it to. California drivers are pretty decent. I might misspeak while I'm concentrating, but forgive me. Okay. So max speed limit, the best bet for preempting any ticket that you might get is to simply avoid going over the max speed. Right now I'm under the max speed, I'm on the freeway, but we're in traffic. Now why is this trailer in the left lane? I have no goddamn idea. I don't think he's supposed to be there. Okay, basically I want to mention I'm on the 405 freeway, California, Southern California, heading toward Los Angeles, Santa Monica. And I'm just going to chill in the carpool lane for a bit so I can concentrate on my talking. And I'm going to the ocean. Okay, so max speed limit, you can still fight it, a little harder to fight. Now there's a couple ways to fight a ticket. You have what's known as the affirmative defense, meaning you have a really great reason why you were speeding. Or you have a great defense. And then there's a technical defense, which is, you know, the radar couldn't have seen me from that vector, and I was behind the wall, and there was a pile of bunnies on my bike, whatever you want to say. And often you can use both defenses. Keep in mind, you only have to be right once, one time. If the judge deems that you've made a good legal argument, even if you didn't know that in your TBD, that could be a potential victory for you. You get your money back by mail, throw a party. Now, if you lose the TBD and you do a trial de novo, you get a new judge, and you can make your case again. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is if you lose the TBD and you're in court, you can ask for traffic school generally, and you can often get it, even if you're not eligible. If you're eligible and you lose your TBD, depending on how good your case is, you probably just want to punt and use your traffic school. More so on a max speed law ticket than a basic speed law ticket. So what else? I'm going to go into a little bit more detail about how speed limit signs are established, and why I started fighting tickets, and what my credentials are. I'm calmer now than I'm 44. When I was younger, this was more of an issue, and I used to like to get going in the car. I hated when people slowed me down, all that stuff, and I got a lot of tickets. But I never got so many tickets that it made me mad or made me want to fight them. And plus, it's a hassle, it's a little intimidating. You guys know what I'm talking about. Anyone that says they're not a little intimidated by court is either a lawyer or they're probably lying. I have a lot of experience fighting tickets. What happened was, when I lived in Santa Clara, I got caught in a super obvious speed trap in a super obvious part of town where there were known speed traps. And what happened was there were like 6 or 7 cops gathered up. One cop like ran out in the street and stopped me and flagged me down. There were like 6 cars pulled over, all with drivers looking bewildered, like trapped deer. And the one cop, there was one female cop who got me on LIDAR, and she gave me this look that I'll never forget. She sort of smirked at me like, you know, haha, I gotcha. And it really pissed me off. The other thing is she was in a hoodie and out of uniform, and for some reason, non-ticket fighting me at that time knew that that was a problem for her. I knew that I could use that against her, at least I suspected. So what I did is I called the NMA, which is the National Motorists Association, and I gave that guy a little buzz in case you wanted to come in. And they had a free legal advisor on there who gave me the rundown on ticket fighting and explained a lot of the stuff and told me about engineering surveys and, you know, and told me how to get the survey. Quick word about surveys. The engineering and traffic survey that establishes the speed limit on surface streets is something that you Americans have the right to, we Americans have the right to under the Sunshine Act. Basically, we have the right to have that information. We can waltz right into court, pay a very nominal fee for copies, or we can just go to the bailiff and have him get it, you know, bring us a folder, pick up the cross street, whatever, and then he'll make us copies. Now, the first time you go to court when it's in session, and you talk to the nice bailiff, and you say, hey, I need the freaking traffic survey for a given road, and he does it, my friends, that is power. And what I mean is, that is you exercising your right as a civilian to get what you need. And you're enjoying the civil process. And I have to tell you, that is empowering. If you never win a case, you're able to do that. You've learned something you didn't know. You've employed power you didn't know you had. And you exercised your rights. So, get the traffic survey. The next thing you want to do with the engineering traffic survey is you want to check it out. You want to be sure. You want to be sure that that survey was conducted legally. Now, what I mean is, there are standards by which the traffic engineer.
Target acquired.
Little backfire. There are standards by which the traffic engineer has to abide while measuring cars on a given road. 1, has to be 50 cars or more. 2, the cars cannot be under the influence of a traffic control device. This is a stoplight, stop sign, etc. Because people slow down at stoplights. You get an artificially low limit, artificially low speed limit, and enthusiastic ticket enforcement and angry civilians. So not under the influence of a traffic control device. Thank you. This guy holding his mirror for me. Other thing is, I don't believe it can be done on a curve, and that would make sense, wouldn't it? People slow down on curves. Some people slow down too much. So, not under the influence of a curve. There are some other rules too. Now, if any of those rules have been broken on the ENT survey, you can use that in your ticket defense, and you can make a case. So, I've done that. I did that with my very first ticket, and I won. It turns out they were citing construction for the lower speed limit. Usually when a speed limit is lower than the recommended, let me explain that. The speed limit is determined after all these measurements by the 85th percentile of cars. In other words, 85% of cars are deemed to travel at a speed that is reasonable and prudent. The other 15% are too slow or too fast. Keep that in mind. So, if the 85th percentile states that a road should have a speed limit of 50 miles an hour, and the speed limit is lower than that, generally they have to explain the extenuating conditions which cause that. And on the first ticket that I fought, the extenuating condition was construction. Construction had not existed on that road for like a year. So, I basically used that against them, made my case, beat the ticket, and a month later the speed limit sign was raised. They raised the speed limit by 5 miles an hour. So that was a pretty stunning victory. That created a monster, and then I won 6 out of 7 tickets with various means. Usually affirmative defense, sometimes technical, and one was an extra traffic school. Sometimes cops just don't show up, that's still a victory. And if people don't think it's a victory, well, they're wrong. Because if a cop doesn't show up, he didn't think it was worth showing up for, and you win. If these tickets were truly bad, cops would show up for every ticket. In fact, they would be required to. It's easier for a cop to write a new ticket than to show up for every single ticket. What they're doing nowadays is they tend to group up all the tickets on one day, and there's ways around that too, but I won't go into it in this vlog. So there you have it. That's the art of ticket fighting. I recommend fighting every ticket you can. Use that traffic school when it suits you, when you have a ticket you can't fight easily, and go from there. You're going to lose some, so you'll end up paying some. You're going to win some. Now, the reason I say fight every ticket is because tickets are often given out really unfairly, and like I said, a lot of us have paid tickets we shouldn't have paid, or shouldn't have gotten. So keep that in mind, friends. I've actually gotten a little slower in my older age since fighting tickets. Not because of the ticket fighting necessarily, just because I'm older and wiser and more mellow. I don't commute, so I'm avoiding tickets that way. But for those of you on the road a lot, you'll tend to get tickets for stupid reasons. You guys all know what I mean. I'm sure you all have stories. So if you fight every ticket, it all evens out in the wash anyway. Traffic school, as I mentioned, now you can ask for traffic school in the TBD if you want to. What you can say is something like, you know, I'm not admitting guilt, but I'm willing to pay the fine, and I would like traffic school. This way, you avoid the point, which is the real kicker, but, and the county gets their money, but you get out of that ticket. You avoid the point, you pay the money, whatever. You're essentially, it's not a bribe, but you're basically offering to pay and asking for traffic school, which is the way to get rid of the point. And that's even if you're not currently eligible for traffic school. Gotta love people when they ride the line like that. Yeah, these tires just feel weird on the paint, so the other day it was making me think something was wrong with them, but I'm just not used to them in this condition. What else? What did I leave out? This is going to be a longer vlog, by the way, because that's how I roll. I might edit it up, though. I'll chop out the slow parts, but some people like to see the whole trip. and people can easily jump around if they want to. This is the 405 and the 101 interchange. Okay, now I gotta watch people darting in and out of the carpool lane. I'm not used to lane splitting. I used to be so fast, and now I'm like, I'm a little slow now. I used to do this every single day. To work, from work. And a lot more traffic. It's still early yet, so. Okay. So, what did I leave out? Anything you guys want to know, let me know. I'll do a follow-up and I'll explain in more of this stuff. I've explained sort of my qualifications, 6 out of 7. I actually should have beat the 7th ticket because it was an engineering and traffic survey defense, and the survey was actually too low for the given road. But sometimes you get a local cop, a local judge, and if the cops show up and they make an effort, a lot of times the judges will reward them by finding you guilty. Plus they win. If they find you guilty, they win. I mean, they get your money, right? So, buses are tricky. Tricky to pass buses. Okay, one other thing to keep in mind, especially, this is California. I don't know if this applies in other states, but in California, if you're stopped, you have the right to have your case heard at the county seat. So let's say, like, I'm at the very north end of LA, which you already know if you know anything about California. And downtown LA is a bitch to get to, and park and all that stuff. I have the right, if I want to say, I want my case heard at the county seat. Now the cop may be thinking he's going to go to the local courthouse and, you know, get an easy win if he decides to show up. But if I say I want my case heard at the county seat, he's got to trek all the way down to downtown LA, and he may not do it. Now he may do it to spite me, but he may not do it because he can write 5 more tickets easy. Or it may not work well with his the groupings of his other tickets in that area. So keep that in mind, Californians. Now that may also apply to other states. So that's a pretty good trick to have. That's a little bit of power right there too. And my goal is not to have the most power in the universe. My goal is to be able to fight tickets, which is my civil right. And I do. Traffic is bad right now. Sometimes cars don't want to make it easy for you. Still getting used to these tires, sorry, on this type of a road. Getting a little bit more used to it. Thankfully the Gixxer is nice and narrow. Okay, so that's it on traffic fighting, ticket fighting, sorry. I guess I'm traffic fighting too. That's it on ticket fighting for now. If I misspoke, forgive me, I'm doing a couple things here. And I will see you all next time.